Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kate Bagnall, and I'm the convener of the Family History program here at the University of Tasmania and the course coordinator for the Diploma of Family History. So today we've got about an hour together. I'm going to start by giving a bit of an introduction to the Diploma of Family History course, and then we'll have the opportunity to have some discussion and some Q&A to hopefully answer any questions that you have about the course. Just to let you know that the session is being recorded. So if you don't catch something when I run through it today, we will be following up with a recording that you can access. Also, just to let you know that if you do have questions, please to pop them in the Q&A section. In Zoom, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. So pop your questions in there, and you can put those questions in there at any point during the session. And my colleague Rebecca from the School of Humanities is going to be helping me kind of answer those questions at the end of my presentation. So let's get started. Okay, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today. And I'm here in Nipaluna, Hobart, on Lutruwita, and that's the traditional lands of the Mawinana people. And I'd like to acknowledge their elders past and present, and the Tasmanian Aboriginal people who continue to care for country today. All right. So today we're going to have a bit of a session introducing the Diploma of Family History. What is the course and what do we teach and how do we teach it? So the Diploma of Family History comprises 8 units. So you need to complete 8 units of study to finish the diploma. Each of the units in the Diploma of Family History runs for 8 weeks. So most of the units have 6 weeks of content, and in the middle of the 8 weeks, we have 1 week's break, and then we have a break of 1 week at the end while you write up your final assessment tasks. The course is undertaken part-time. The minimum amount of time that you can spend to complete the course is 1 year, and the maximum is 3 years. The diploma is taught across 4 terms in the year, starting in February, April, July, and October. And so basically those terms mirror the school terms that, if any of you have young people in your lives, you'll be very familiar with the school year. So our teaching terms follow the Tasmanian school terms as well. So our next intake into the Diploma of Family History is in term 3, and that starts on the 19th of July and runs through to the 12th of September. So the Diploma of Family History is fully online and asynchronous. So what does that mean? All of our teaching takes place online, and it takes place at a time of your convenience. So there aren't any sessions where you have to be online at a particular time. So you can study during the week or on the weekend around your other commitments. We know that a lot of our students live busy lives, even in retirement. So it's a way of letting you fit your study around the other things that are going on in your life. You will need regular access to a computer and to the internet because all of the study is online. The Diploma of Family History is suitable for any level of study experience and any level of family history experience at all. So we have some students who have been researching their family history for a long time and who come to sort of learn to improve their skills, to share in a community of researchers, whereas we have other people who are really just starting out on their family history journey. So we welcome all comers, no matter what your level of study experience, whether you've engaged in tertiary study before or not. Oops, I went the wrong way. All right. So what will you learn in the Diploma of Family History? First of all, you'll learn to research using historical sources online, in archives and libraries, and in family collections as well. We know that many of you over the last year have been at home a lot, and so it's really great that we're able to make use of all the digitised resources that we have online through archives, libraries, and genealogical websites like Ancestry and Family Search. You'll also learn to organise your family history research, both in a physical form and digital form. So particularly those of us who've been doing historical research for a long time, you acquire a lot of research materials, whether that's things you've downloaded from the internet or copies that you've made in the archives. So one of the things we think about is how to manage all those research resources. You learn how to create family histories in a range of forms. We have 2 units that look specifically at writing, but in all the other units, we think about the ways that you can present your family history, whether that's in sort of written narrative form or using maps or pictures or audio as well. So we learn how to communicate historical knowledge accurately and ethically. Ethics is a really important part of doing family history well, and we look at that particularly in our first unit, Introduction to Family History. And the fifth thing is using digital tools and technologies for family history research. Throughout all of the units, we are teaching how to use digital tools and technologies, and that might be something as simple as using Word or PowerPoint, to more sophisticated things like how to engage with and use Ancestry really well and really effectively. So in the Diploma of Family History, as I said, that you're required to complete 8 units to finish the diploma. And those 8 units are divided into 2 different levels. So there are foundation level units and there are introductory level units. And for those of you who've studied at university before, the introductory level units are about the equivalent of a first year Bachelor of Arts history unit. So we start off with Introduction to Family History, which we have starting again in term 3 this year, Writing Family History, Place Image Object, and another one of our very popular history units, Convict Ancestors. At introductory level, we have Writing the Family Saga, which is a continuation on from Writing Family History. And those 2 units, Writing the Family Saga and Writing Family History, are taught by my colleagues in English and Creative Writing. We also have Oral History, Families and War, and a new unit that we introduced this year called Migrant Families. So we have 4 units that are taught out of history, 2 units that are taught out of English, and 2 that are taught by my colleagues in Creative Arts and Media. So as I mentioned, Introduction to Family History is starting next term in term 3. So it's a really great place for everybody to start, whether you're new to family history and genealogy or whether you're an experienced researcher. It's a great place to get back to some of the fundamentals of doing family history research well. So it covers fundamentals such as organising your research, using archives, ethics for family historians, and communicating your research. Throughout the Diploma of Family History, as I said, we're teaching you digital skills. Everybody knows that being digitally literate is a really important skill to have these days, whether that's from doing your online banking to communicating over Zoom or doing family history. So we teach using computers and the internet to research and create family histories. We look at how to use online genealogy websites like ancestry.com effectively. And we look at how we locate and use digitised library and archive collections, such as the National Library of Australia's wonderful Trove resource and state and national archive collections, which are increasingly available online. All the learning materials for the Diploma of Family History are presented in the course materials that you're given online. We use a system called Milo, which is an online learning system. So all the teaching materials are provided for you there. We have video lectures with transcripts and discussion boards where you can interact with your fellow students and with us. A lot of the units provide readings such as history journal articles, book chapters, media articles and blog posts. And there are writing activities to do as well, particularly in our 2 writing units. There are weekly writing activities and also opportunities to do peer-to-peer feedback. So learning to give and receive feedback on your writing, which is a really important skill. A lot of the units use online quizzes to help you consolidate your content knowledge. And also, of course, there are assessment tasks. In the history units in particular, the final assessment tasks are often an essay based on your own family history research. Through the University of Tasmania, as a student, you're able to access all the resources that the library has to offer. In particular, we provide you with access to Ancestry Library Edition and to the British Library Newspaper Archive. So if any of you are doing UK-based research, that's a really useful source to have. Through the library, there's also a huge range of history books and journals and many things that are available online. So even if you're not here in Hobart or Launceston, you are able to access a lot of the library resources online. Around each of the units in the Diploma of Family History, we have really active learning communities. So as I mentioned, in each of the units, there are discussion boards where you can interact with your teaching team and with your fellow students. Some of those discussion boards are focused on the content and the material that you're learning about, whereas others are sort of social spaces where you can chat with your fellow students. We also, for the Diploma of Family History, have what is called a common room. So we think of it a bit as like, you know, a common room where you could go and catch up and have a cup of tea, read some magazines, that sort of thing. But it's another online Milo site. There are discussion boards and resources that are available there for all UTAS family history students to use. Some of our units also have face-to-face sessions in the units, Q&A sessions where you can bring any questions and comments to ask your teaching team. A lot of our students also get together outside of the units and outside of the university structures. So there are student-run Facebook groups, and also we know that some students organise local meetups with students in their own neighbourhood or town, which is really great. So where are our students? I'm here in Hobart, but a large proportion of our students are not here in Tasmania with us. About 20% are here in Tasmania, but the rest of them are scattered all around Australia. A lot in New South Wales and Victoria and Queensland, and fewer in the West. So the Diploma of Family History is a great way to consolidate your interests and your learning in family history, but it's also a way to inspire you to go on to do some further study. We have quite a number of people who've graduated from the Diploma of Family History now who've moved on to continue their study with us at UTAS. So some options there are in the Diploma of Arts, which is a one-year full-time study program or a part-time equivalent, or a Bachelor of Arts, which you would know would be a longer course, a 3-year full-time study or part-time equivalent. And a lot of our students who've gone on to do the BA do history, they do ancient civilizations. I know that some of my classics colleagues who teach Latin have some of our alumni with them this year. Also creative writing, and of course our history units, if I didn't mention that already. So in all of those courses as well, there's both face-to-face and online study options. So that's all I have kind of as a prepared presentation. So we might now open it up to questions, because I know that you all often have lots of questions to ask about the course and things that are particular to you. So if people do have questions, please pop them in the chat now. And Rebecca, are you there?
I am here, Kate. We have had one question from Linda, who said that she did a couple of the introductory units back in 2016. Could she go on now and do other units?
Certain. Yep, so you certainly could, Linda. You just need to get in touch with UConnect about how to re-enroll in the course, and they could help you there. So definitely, yep.
Belinda's asked, what sort of time commitment would be required each week?
So we estimate that students should be spending about 6 to 8 hours per week per unit. Most students take on 1 unit per term. That's a really good kind of easy level to start at. Although of course it depends on your own sort of other commitments, but particularly for those who might be still working, probably 1 unit a term is a good level to start at. So of course it depends as well on you know, how familiar you are with study and with doing family history, but we estimate about 6 to 8 hours a week. And of course, if you get very caught up in your research, as we all know, you know, you can go down lots of rabbit holes that can spend a lot more time.
Thanks, Kate. Speaking of rabbit holes, Ken's asked whether you have got any suggestions for pre-reading before the course commences. Is there anything?
I mean, that's a tricky question, Ken. There are obviously, each of your own family histories is different, and in the Diploma of Family History, what you're doing is you're researching your own particular family histories. So that might be whether it's from the UK or from continental Europe or other places as well. There are some really great resources. If you hang on 1 minute, I'll just get something off my bookshelf. Oh. So if you're kind of new to family history, that's not going to show up for some reason. Look at that, disappears into my background. But the Heraldry Society, Genealogy Society of Canberra has a really great introductory sort of guide to family history research called Family History for Beginners and Beyond. So if I was going to suggest one book to start with for doing Australian family history research, that's a really great one to start with.
Bill has asked if there's any minimum educational requirements to start the diploma.
No, there isn't. So we're very welcoming of whatever your background is. We have lots of students who haven't completed high school, particularly people who are of an older generation who didn't perhaps get the opportunities to go on to further study when they were younger. So once again, we have very flexible pathways into the diploma. So contact UConnect or through the website, and they're able to guide you on what you need to submit as part of the application enrolment process.
Judith has asked about the book list for term 3. Is the book list up to date on the website? So
we don't have, do you mean a reading list?
Text,
so we don't.
Yes.
Text. Okay, so none of the units in the Diploma of Family History require you to buy a textbook or to require books to purchase. All the learning materials are provided in Milo, in the online learning management system. So there's no extra resources that you have to buy. It's all provided for you in Milo. Yep.
Lillian's asked, from what you've shown us so far, there is no second unit on convict ancestors. Is there likely to be a further unit?
No, so we've done some revision to the family history program over the last year, and there was a second convict unit, but that has been now replaced with the migrant families unit. We found that there have been a sort of increasing interest in people coming from more diverse family backgrounds, and we wanted to be able to sort of address that in the Diploma of Family History. So so there's just the one convict unit, which is taught by Dr. Kristen Harmon, who is quite an expert in particularly Tasmanian convict history. Yeah.
Ken's asked, if one went on to do a BA, what credit might be obtained on completion of the diploma? Do you know that? Or
I don't know that off the top of my head, but there certainly is a credit that goes into the BA. But once again, that's a question for my colleagues in the admin side of things rather than me. Yep. Perhaps we can follow up there, Rebecca.
we can. Is it possible to get credit for units obtained at another university? Again, that's something that can be followed up through UConnect.
Yeah, so it is possible to get credit for previous study, but there's an application process that takes place there. So, yeah.
Is there any time spent on using DNA in family research?
So we don't have a unit specifically that looks at DNA. We do look in Introduction to Family History. We look more at the kind of the questions around what DNA and family history brings up. So not around the technical or scientific aspects of DNA, but around sort of the ethical questions about how we deal with the questions that DNA might pose for us. And I guess thinking about the things that we need to consider before we undertake DNA testing and the sorts of things that those results can show up.
Yeah. Kate, can you just go over the structure of the course? And we just got a question about, is it a requirement that you do all 8 units, or can you just do some?
Yeah, sure. So put that slide back up there. Whoops. So the diploma is made up of 8 units, the 4 foundation units and the 4 introductory units. And to graduate from the Diploma of Family History, you need to complete all of those 8 units. Obviously, you can enroll and just do 1 or 2, but you wouldn't come out with a qualification at the end of it. Yeah. And we suggest that you start with the foundation level units, particularly start with Introduction to Family History. But particularly if you're new to tertiary study or new to family history, it's a really good idea to start with those foundation level units. And you can tell them because they have the 00 in their unit codes when you're looking online.
Christine's asked about Indigenous family history, and is that addressed within the course?
Yeah. So once again, we don't specifically do a lot of teaching around Indigenous family history. I'm sure you understand that's quite a specialised area of research and study. But certainly in Introduction to Family History, we touch on that. And also if you are an Indigenous person and have Indigenous ancestors, you know, and are looking to research that in your own family history, we can certainly provide some advice and assistance with doing that. Yeah.
I've just noticed there's quite a few questions going into the chat, so if they could go into the Q&A section, that would be helpful. But somebody has just asked if there's any support with computer skills that they perhaps feel like they may not quite be up to the standard, and what kind of support can they get?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I understand that it can be quite intimidating to contemplate studying completely online when you're not so confident with using computers. But in each of the units, you have a unit coordinator and tutors, and we're very used to answering lots and lots of questions about studying online and doing family history online. The university also has support services, both IT service supports and also some student advisors. So if you are a bit hesitant or a bit worried, there are study skills programs and student advisors who can also sort of support you through that, as well as the teaching team in each of the units. Yep.
Another question that's come through the chat is whether, other than for personal interest and a bit of a hobby, Kate, would you say that the diploma is useful for employment options?
Certainly, I know that we have people who've finished the Diploma of Family History who've gone on to start their own little genealogy businesses. So I think that if you're wanting to do that, it can be a good stepping stone to sort of professionalising your research in family history. It doesn't provide an accreditation like that, but it's obviously evidence of your study in the area. I think that, you know, it provides some work-ready skills that people might not obviously think of through family history, but certainly around you know, some around communication, around sort of critical thinking, those sorts of soft skills that are also really important in the workplace as well. We know that we have librarians, people who help family historians in their day-to-day jobs in public libraries who study with us, and also historical societies as well.
Kate, has the structure of the course changed from last year? There's a lady here that has said that she thought there were 5 foundation units and 3 introductory.
Yes, so students who enrolled in 2020 or before have a different course structure from students who enrolled in 2021 and going forwards. So if you were already enrolled before 2020 or before, you did have an option of doing 5 foundation level units and 3 introductory level units. But if you're a new student commencing in 2021, then there's the 8 units to complete, 4 and 4. Yeah.
And is there a UTAS style guide for writing?
For
writing.
For writing. So there is, we have a family history referencing guide that we ask, so when students are writing their essays and their assignments to do their footnoting, we have a particular style guide. But beyond that, there's not a formal writing style guide.
Yeah. And any future plans for expanding the suite of units and or courses, an advanced diploma, graduate diploma?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're really concentrating on making some improvements and consolidating the current course that we're offering. But we are doing some other exciting things around the Diploma of Family History. Some of you might have heard of the webinar series that we're running. So we've run 2 evening webinars. And we're also sort of looking to get out and about more this year. So my colleague Imogen Wegman and I will be at the AFO conference, the AFO Congress on Norfolk Island this year. So even though the Diploma of Family History itself is not being expanded at this point, we're looking about how we can sort of take family history beyond the university as well.
Kate, I think you said earlier that the introductory units are more like first year BA units. But Susie's just asking, is the time commitment required similar for the introductory units?
Yeah, so
Yep.
all of the units in the Diploma of the Diploma of Family History run for 8 weeks. So a standard university semester is 13 weeks, so we're shorter than a standard university semester. But it's more the level of sort of learning and the expectations more like a first year unit. Yeah.
There's been quite a few questions around costs and fees. And I think we would just recommend that people either go to the website or contact our Uconnect area, and they can give you all the relevant advice about that.
Yeah.
I think that's the questions that we've got here in the Q&A.
Okay. I saw someone asked what was the book that I showed before.
Yep.
Oh, it's called, can you see? It's called, what's it called? Family History for Beginners and Beyond from Hagsock in Canberra.
There's also been a couple of questions, Kate, just around people's family trees. So there's someone's asked about whether they need to have had convicts within their ancestry, or whether you prefer, does research need to be specific to one stream of the family, or do you like to do a broad kind of approach to the research? Can you give people a bit of advice around that?
Yep, so on the convicts question, in Convict Ancestors, obviously the unit is about convicts to Australia. The final assessment task in that is writing an essay about a convict. If you don't have a convict in your own family history, the unit coordinator, Kristen Harmon, is very happy to find a convict for you to research. Sometimes people will research someone with the same family name as themselves, or someone who ended up living in the same, town or suburb. So if you don't have a convict ancestor, we can help you find someone to research there. In terms of kind of whether you need to focus on one particular line in your family history, in each of the units, you get to explore different parts of your family history. So in migrant families, we look at the process of migration. So you can choose one of your ancestors who migrated to Australia over time. That might be a 20th century migrant ancestor, or someone who came in the 1820s. We have a unit called Families and War, which focuses on the First World War. So if you have an ancestor who served in the First World War, you can focus on them in that. So really, a lot of the focus of where you put your research, where you do your research, is up to you. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there.
Kate, Ken has asked, what is your screen background, which is quite interesting because we were talking about it before we started.
So my screen background, which way do I go? That way. So my understanding is it's the coal mines, which are down on the Tasman Peninsula, and they're ruins now, but they were convict coal mines.
Neil has asked, is there anywhere where he can view and read assignments by students, e.g. convict ancestors? He'd really like to read about other people's research and convicts apart from his own work.
I mean, I certainly know that there are student groups on Facebook that share exchange people's work. So if you are enrolled in the course, you should kind of jump in there. As the academic staff, we don't distribute students' work without their permission, of course. So it would really be kind of trying to hook in with people who've already completed the course or the units that you're interested in, perhaps through Facebook or through your local historical society or family history society. I think we have alumni from all around Australia, so it's very possible that your local family history society has someone who's a member who's completed the course as well.
Elizabeth's asked, said that she's a relatively recent immigrant to Australia and most of her family history relates to New Zealand and the UK. Would the course still be relevant to her?
The short answer is yes. I mean, a lot of the teaching is focused on Australia and also New Zealand as well. But once again, there's quite a scope with the assignments that you do about focusing on your own family history. So we have an oral history unit, for example, so you can interview someone from your own family. If the Families and War unit, you can write about someone who was in, the British Army or in England during the First World War. But that said, a lot of the teaching material is focused on Australia and to a lesser extent, New Zealand.
Shane would just like a bit more information about Ancestry.com. He's got an account, and does that differ to what's offered with the course?
So Ancestry offers a lot of different packages. So Ancestry.com, as a person who subscribes individually, there are lots of different packages that you can subscribe to. What we provide access to through the University of Tasmania Library is called Ancestry Library Edition. So that basically provides the kind of the digitized source material, but it doesn't have the family trees and it doesn't allow you as an individual to create family trees. So it has perhaps a wider focus on the digitized historical archives, but it doesn't have the kind of the building a tree functionality. So you can, if you're interested in comparing what you currently have in your Ancestry subscription with Ancestry Library Edition, if you Google Ancestry Library Edition, you'll find information on what that has.
I think we've kind of almost got through all of the questions here, Kate.
Okay.
People got anything else they'd specifically like to ask around the course? Gay's asked, where do we find information about the webinars that you mentioned, Kate?
Okay, perhaps we can we'll do an email follow-up after this. So perhaps we can provide some information in that. But our next one will be held on the 25th of August. We're still finalising the details of that, but we will pop something in the follow-up email about that and let you know. So Rebecca, I've spotted a couple more questions there.
Sorry, yeah.
So Barbara's asked if do you need to have completed all the foundation units before starting the introductory ones? And the answer is no. You can study the units in any order that you choose. So you can do them, the 4 foundation ones and then the 4 introductory ones, or you can mix them up depending on your own interests. But as I said, if you're kind of new to tertiary study or new to family history, it's a really great idea to start with the foundation ones first.
And Susie's asked whether the units are offered at the same time each year, or do you change them around?
Basically, they will stay in the same order as they are at the moment. So for the rest of this year, we have on offer Introduction to Family History, Writing Family History, and Families and War, which are offered in term 3. And then we have Place, Image, Object, and Writing the Family Saga in term 4. And then the other units will be offered again at the beginning of the year in term 1 and 2. But all the unit dates are available on the website, on our website, so you can have a look there. The only change that we would make is if we had some staffing changes that meant that we needed to swap things around a bit.
And do we have dates for the cutoff date for enrolling in the course for the mid-year?
You can enroll. You can enrol up till the unit begins. So yeah, you've still got about a month until the units start on the 19th of July.
Kate, do you know what's the next webinar topic expected to be?
The next webinar topic is, let me think, it's Tanya Evans, who's a historian at Macquarie University in Sydney, and Tanya will be talking about her research. So Tanya researches about people doing family history research. She does a lot of fantastic interviews with family historians. So she'll be talking about a new book that she's got coming out, and she'll be in conversation with an Indigenous family historian and scholar called Shauna Bostock-Smith. So it'd be Tanya Evans and Shauna Bostock-Smith in conversation.
And you might also want to give yourself a plug, Kate, for your upcoming TV performance.
Sure, why not? So you'd all be aware that Who Do You Think You Are is new series of Who Do You Think You Are is running on SBS at the moment. So I'll actually be appearing in an episode next week. So the episode with Jeff Fatt from The Wiggles. So my research is around Chinese Australian family history. So it was a really lovely opportunity to meet with Jeff and to talk to him about his family history. But I won't say too much because that will spoil the excitement next week.
Barbara's just wanting some clarification. You said that the units only take 8 weeks. Do the units offered in the same term run concurrently or one after the other?
They run concurrently. So so we have 3 units on offer in term 3, and they all start on the 19th of July, and then they run over the same 8 weeks. And that allows us kind of time to, so that the unit takes 8 weeks, but then at the end of that 8th week, you submit your final assignments, and then we have time to mark the assignments and do the marking and get marks back before the new term starts. Just having a look.
Yeah, what's considered a full-time load then, Kate?
So in the Diploma of Family History, you can't do what is a full-time load, just the way that the course is structured. So the most that you can do is, I think, 2. I'm not sure if you can do all 3 units in term 3 or term 1. That's a question for my academic admin colleagues. But yeah, so under the university's sort of guidelines, even completing two units in a term isn't counted as a full-time load. But if you were to complete it in a year, you would do 2 units per term.
Okay, we've got to the bottom. Oh no. Can you give us an example of a type of assignment question?
Okay, so let's start with Introduction to Family History. So in Introduction to Family History, the final assessment task is that students are asked to put together a short research report. So basically, we ask you to come up with a research question around your own family history research, and then to do some research and then to write up a report about that research. So some of you would be aware that as professional genealogists, one of the tasks that you often do is to prepare research reports for clients. So this is like a mini example of that. In migrant families, which I'm just finishing up, and I have essays to mark. So the final assessment task for that is to write a 1,000-word essay about the story of a migrant ancestor. So looking at their origins and their process of migration, and then sort of their life in the destination that they went to. In migrant families, we also do a document analysis, a source analysis exercise, where you get to choose a primary source and do some analysis around that. In oral history, students are asked to make a recording of an oral history interview and to do a transcription, to do a transcript of that interview, and then to write up an essay based on that oral history that they've done. What else? Place, image, object, which is taught by my colleagues in creative arts. One of the assessment tasks for that is around a map. You do an annotated map. So thinking once again about a place that's significant to your family history in some way, and to either create a digital or a hard copy map with illustrations and some annotations around why that place is significant. I think, yeah, so in the history units, we mostly focus on writing essays as the final assessment task. In the 2 writing units, there is a lot of writing. Each week there are small kind of writing exercises that you're asked to do, and then once again, a kind of a larger writing piece as the final assessment.
We've got to the bottom of the list.
Again. Excellent. Does anybody else have a question? You can pop it in the Q&A. It's all gone quiet, Rebecca.
It has gone quiet. I think we've got through. So I suppose just to reiterate the questions around application processes and costs, information either on the website or through Uconnect.
Yep, I'll put back up the slide with the website address. Yep, so if you want to find out more about the units and the scheduling of the units, you can go to our website, utas.edu.au/family history. And there you'll see some descriptions about each of the units and the schedule, the dates that they'll be running for the rest of this year. We're still finalising the schedule for next year, but it should basically follow what we've done this year. Yep. So, Susan, were you writing a question? Maybe there's half a question.
Anna's asked whether this is available as a recording because she would like to listen again.
Yes, so this session has been recorded, and in the follow-up email that everybody who's registered for the webinar will get a follow-up email, and we'll include a link to the recording with that. Yep.
I think Susan was just trying to work out writing family history and the other writing the family saga.
So is the order important? I think that's...
Yes, that's what she was, yep.
Yep, so just let me, is it necessary to... Okay, so with the 2 writing units, writing family history and writing the family saga, the order isn't important. You can do one before the other, but they do sort of build on each other. So if you were doing it in an ideal world, you'd do writing family history first and then writing the family saga second. But in essence, it doesn't matter. You can do them the other way around. Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like Janice is getting through her list of units. She's done family history and writing family history.
Yep.
Photo essay. So the July units again, Kate, would you mind just putting those?
Yep. So the 3 units that we're offering in term 3 are Introduction to Family History, Writing Family History, and Families and War. Yep. So,
okay.
Looks like all the questions. So we've got a few more minutes if anybody else has another question.
Do you get RPL if you've already done Intro to Family History?
Colleen, do you mean that you've done it previously, not in, and then you've had a break and then you want to come back to it? Or I'm not quite sure what Colleen means in that question. So, previously
through UTAS a number of years ago.
Yeah, you should do, Colleen. So you just need to get in touch with UConnect, and they'll be able to advise you on how to get credit for that. Yeah.
And Diane's just asking about the course, and it's all online. She's just wondering, does she need to be able to get to UTAS on campus? No,
Diane, it's all entirely taught online. So you don't need to come to Hobart. You don't need to come to Tasmania.
Unless you'd like to.
Unless you'd like to, of course, it's a beautiful place. But no, you can just study at home. We know that some students like to kind of meet up with fellow students who live in their town or their neighbourhood, or otherwise you can just beaver away at home by yourself. Yep.
Okay, and Anna's just asking any questions about admin questions, who she should be contacting, so we can provide the UConnect details after this.
Yeah, or you can, on the family history page on the UTAS website, there's kind of a bar down the right-hand side of the screen that has some links to click on to kind of make an inquiry or to enrol, those sorts of things. So you can do it directly from the website as well.
Okay.
So we've got a few more minutes if anybody's got another question. So it's all gone quiet, Rebecca.
It has.
It has. All right then. Well, maybe we will. Oh, one more. Colleen's asked, is there lots of extra reading material available for subjects like there was in the Introduction to Family History? I found that interesting. Yes, so there is lots of resources, reading materials that each of the units contains. You know, and of course your unit coordinators I'm always very happy to suggest more things for you to read if you've got a particular research interest. We also find that, so in each of the units, we have an Ask the Teaching Team discussion board, and we have an Ask the Family Historians discussion board. And so we know that your fellow family historians often have lots of really interesting suggestions as well for sources and readings as well. So I think that's one of the things that I find is really lovely about this cohort of students that we have, is how helpful you all are to each other and to us as well in suggesting things when we perhaps don't have a particular niche expertise, because you all bring such diverse family histories and family stories to our units. So it's really great when you can share your own knowledge with us as well.
Okay, we've just got a question from Anne about unit number limits.
No, there are no capped numbers on enrolments in the units. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry to hear you had trouble enrolling last year, Anne. I don't know what went on there, what the problem was, but we'll follow up with you and see if we can help you with enrolment this year as well. I think we all had a bit of a struggle last year at times, and I know that we had some really huge interest in enrolling in the Diploma of Family History in the middle of last year. So I'm not sure if that's when you were trying to enrol, but we'll get in touch and see if we can help you out. All right. So it's just about 3:30. So if there's no final questions, I think we might wrap it up there. As I said, the session's been recorded, and we will send everybody who's registered, whether they've attended today or not, a follow-up email with some further information about enrolment, and also about the family history webinar series that we're running as well. So if there's no final questions, I think we might call it a day. All right. Thank you, everyone.